Okay, you guys, I literally used to overspend constantly at the grocery store. That was my thing. Every time I would go get groceries, my nervous system would go into such overdrive. All I wanted was to like throw down all the money. And when I would get low on some things, like just slightly low, I felt like I had to buy 10 of them. Holocaust thing. Anyways, Holocaust mentality. And so the person who really helped me out with this is this woman right here, Nadine. She's absolutely brilliant. This interview was incredible. It really was. I think it was our best interview yet. We'll link up the previous one that we did. It was so good. And if you're an overspender in any way and like you're really wanting to reel that in, please listen to this and please get her toolkit that she created. It's brilliant. Like I mean, I'm a testimonial. Her work has changed my life. I can go to a grocery store and actually be calm and peaceful now. So however you overspend doesn't have to be on groceries, whatever your thing is. I promise you this is going to change your life. So let's get into this amazing conversation. All right, we've had you here before, so everybody go listen to that. And now we're just focusing on overspending, which is
We are?
very, very relevant for me at this moment. Yeah, well, maybe I can share.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing is like I notice whenever I'm stressed, and it's like a lot of times it's like financial stress, so it makes absolutely no
Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'll overspend.
Yeah. You know what? I think that it's all of us, especially at this day and age where a lot of uncertainty is happening. We're just overspending. And like you just said, it doesn't make sense because the financial uncertainty is like in one basket, right? And then all of a sudden we're overspending and we're like, why are we sabotaging ourselves? It doesn't make sense. But actually, from a nervous system perspective, it actually makes perfect sense. So, my personal definition of emotional spending is that it's using money as a way to regulate our emotions, to soothe our pain, to escape discomfort, rebel against limits, feel powerful, create a sense of belonging, acceptance, and worth. And the common triggers for emotional spending are loneliness, anger, boredom, grief, overwhelm, comparison, lack of recognition, lack of fulfillment, feeling rejected, scarcity, and financial uncertainty. So, from a nervous system perspective, when we're actually feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, scared, we're just dysregulated. And we have been conditioned to reach outside of us to self-soothe, right? None of us has been taught how to sit with difficult emotions. And the easiest thing to do this day and age is to just reach for the phone and scroll. And of course, what do you find when you're scrolling? You either compare yourself to others, so you feel a certain kind of way about yourself and the way that you're living, or you get an ad or something that triggers you, whether it's an external trigger or an internal trigger, an emotion or a thought or a memory, and we feel uncomfortable. And when we feel this discomfort, add to that all our unmet core needs, we reach for the quickest thing that can soothe us. And a lot of times when people are, emotional spenders, they try the traditional way of stopping overspending, which is like go on a budget or identify your triggers kind of thing. But what happens is that, yes, they're curbing their overspending, but since that itch is not scratched properly, that unmet core need isn't actually met, they find themselves overeating or over something, over consuming something, right? So that's why, from my perspective, it makes sense when we're feeling dysregulated and unsafe that we actually end up buying things, even though it's the opposite of what we need to be doing in that moment.
There's like so much in what you just said. I feel like it was a really brilliant introduction and summary of all the things. And it really sounds like an addiction. At least I wonder if there is like a word, I have to research this, for addiction that's maybe a little less, because
Yeah.
but it is like really. And it's very interesting. I might have shared this with you. A friend of mine who's an amazing therapist, she told me every person with childhood trauma is an
Is
addict.
addicted to, yeah.
Yeah, everyone. So what you just said, like, okay, you're overspending, and then if you forcefully stop, then you would go into overeating, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I think about my own journey of healing, overworking and overeating were very intense. Like that was
Okay.
my kind of go-to. And then when I naturally stopped overeating, which happened through working on my emotions, even though,
Mm,
when you focus on, and I think you'll speak to this for sure, when you focus on, okay, I'm going to stop overeating and I'm going to do this strategy and that strategy or whatever,
mhm.
that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It never works. And then I stopped overeating. I remember one day I was like, oh my God, I haven't had that urge. Like, just
Mhm.
don't have it. And I used to do it every single day, every single day. So then overworking was another one. And then, of course, love and men, which is one that I'm still working with and
Yeah.
through. But when you take away all these things, it's a lot. So it makes sense that it takes time,
Mm,
because then you're left with, holy shit, like this is the reality of my childhood and the grief,
yeah.
the rage, and all of those emotions. And I wanted to share one anecdote and then kind of have you analyze it and be curious.
Okay.
Because last week I've worked with you on overspending and it worked so, so well. And it was,
Mm,
again, that kind of a thing where I was like, oh my God, I don't have the urge. Like it wasn't
yeah.
even like strategies for the overspending,
No, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
suddenly I walked into a grocery store and I feel super calm and easeful.
The best.
But then, yeah, the best. But then when I am under stress, it can come back. But something interesting, last Friday I went to a wedding of a really good friend and I was excited for her, but it
Mhm.
brought up so much for me. Like a wedding, my divorce, going there alone, like maybe like
Mm,
being the
mhm.
only single person. I didn't know many people. Like it was like, felt like walking into a nightmare.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, so much grief. Like I noticed that. I was like, oh my God, so much grief. And so I told myself, well, I have to get there early because traffic and parking and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go to Whole Foods. This is my thing, my guilty like pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go to Whole Foods before, and plus, like, I don't live in the States full time, so like Whole Foods is like so exciting. And I'm going to get all of my favorite snacks and eat them before I go there. And I knew in my mind already that it was gonna be like a soothing thing for me that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I need to freaking soothe myself right now, and that's gonna
Yeah.
be a thing that I do.
Did it work?
Yes, it
Great.
definitely it made me feel more calm, and I actually had the best time at the wedding.
There you
Everybody
go.
told me you're gonna have a great time. I'm like, okay, I cognitively get this, but like there's a lot coming
Yeah.
up and it's uncertain and so
Yeah. So somebody that is very aware like you are, like I am, there is so much that we can do in terms of like with coping. Like you were saying, is there another word for addiction? And I'm like, yeah, of course. It's a coping mechanism. It's a coping strategy. And there are times when things are a little bit too much, like you just mentioned traffic, you mentioned grief, you mentioned divorce, you mentioned not knowing a lot of people. You also like the other things that I'm not going to mention because I know what's happening in your life as well on a personal level. So there was a lot going on, right? So it is okay to be aware of that and reach for the quickest way to soothe, which is, you reach for your snacks and it worked. Sometimes we just have too much on our plate to cope with, but the key difference here is that awareness piece, okay? Because when we're aware of what we're doing and we know that this is a special occasion and it's a one-off, that's one thing. But when we are unaware and we keep reaching out for things to soothe us, we're not getting to the core of it. And you have been sitting with the core of things for a long time. So it's okay to need a break, right? We need a break. We need these things. But the other thing is being aware Like I used to have a client who was aware of her overspending patterns, but she never did anything about them. That's also another way of distracting herself from actually doing the work. That is another acceptable coping strategy, right? Just distracting.
So
So,
what's the difference? Like if someone is really aware, right? There's so many
yeah,
people like
but they're not doing anything about it.
what does that what does doing something about it mean versus like kind of I consciously was like, I'm gonna do this. And I still
Yeah.
spent way more than I wanted to spend.
So, yeah. So you are aware you're doing this as a one-off as opposed to continuously doing it every single day, but you're aware. So when you're aware and you're not doing anything about it, I would not go to the root. I would actually address the part of you that's distracting you from doing something about it. Right? So in that was a special occasion. That was a very special occasion. There was a lot happening for you, right? So you knew that, and you consciously reached out for something that you knew was going to soothe you, and it worked, and that's it. And we're talking about it now, and you didn't do it the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. Whereas if I were aware of something and I kept ignoring it, there is like that distraction piece that we would be working with. That kind of means that maybe you're not ready to go and do the inner work, or you need help doing the inner work in a gentle way. Because so a lot of times we listen to podcasts, we read the books, we blah, 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 we do the right thing, but some wounds are too tender to tend to on our own. And there are very strategic ways of doing that on your own. Like I've got a self-paced program, but it doesn't go to the core of the trauma. It really teaches you the tools to actually, it's not bypassing, but it's working around it so that you can, live your life without messing up your bank account, because we're all doing that now. Like there is a term for it. It's called doom spending. We're just uncertain, we're scared, and we're just spending to satiate that sense of certainty, to actually feel that sense of power or agency. But we're really creating, not only are we creating chaos in our finances, we're creating more dysregulation in our nervous system, but also we are instilling a belief that we cannot be trusted with money. And that is dangerous. We believe that we cannot be trusted, whether it's money or with whatever. That is when we start, like, our self-belief and our self-confidence starts eroding. And that's when our self-worth starts eroding as well.
Mm-hmm. That's huge what you're saying.
Mm.
So it makes me sort of think about, if I think about IFS, and I can explain it a bit, internal family systems, how when you get to the part of you that's called the exile, which is basically it's also called the wounded child. It's like the child part that experienced and held the deepest trauma.
Yeah.
Like very young, before the coping mechanisms, right?
Exactly. Even
in childhood. Getting to that part is really hard.
It's hard and it's tricky. And when it comes to emotional spending, I've identified 5 protector parts that are in charge of the emotional spending cycles. And from my experience working with people, just working with these parts alone without needing to go to the wounded inner child is actually a very effective way of working on that emotional spending and releasing that pattern in a healthy way, as opposed to just going to the eye of the trauma. Like, we don't necessarily have to go there straight away. You might need to with me, with somebody else, but when it comes to emotional spending specifically, working with the 5 protector parts is gonna change everything.
Please share them with us.
Yeah. So the 5 protector parts that I've been able to uncover just from myself and from like years of working with emotional spenders, we've got the punisher, the pleaser, the painkiller, the player, and not a sec, the prover.
Oh my God, they're all P's. How?
Yeah, I love. I mean, I invented. I mean, I didn't invent them. I came up with their names and all that stuff. And you know how I like to play on words.
I have to say, I'm sorry I'm saying this live, but I'm just gonna say it. I always thought you're brilliant, but I think you like what you're sounding like this is your freaking jam. And like
Yeah.
how you're focused, this focus on overspending, because I know you've struggled with it and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes still do, and you can meet yourself there really well. It's just so good. It's like so it's just I'm
Oh,
just
thank you.
excited.
Oh,
And
thank you
the
so much.
keys, I just yeah, it's like a very it's like your signature.
Yeah. So the prover is the part of you that spends money out of rebellion. The pleaser is the part of you that spends money to please others for just so that we can feel belonging and acceptance. The painkiller is the part of you that spends money on little treats just to soothe an internal pain.
Me.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, one
And
question, sorry. The people pleaser, does that necessarily mean that you're spending on other people?
no, it also means that you're spending money on yourself, but to impress others.
Mm.
Like, for example, you go to the shops and you're like, oh my God, if I buy this lamp, so and so will love it and they will like me more. They will think I'm their type. They'll like me more, kind of thing. So that's the pleaser. And then we've got the punisher, which is probably the part of you that will buy my program because it hates the whole like overspending pattern. But when we have that punisher on, which brings me to the next point of like when we try to curb our overspending through putting ourselves or punishing ourselves, that's the punisher part, on putting ourselves on the strict budget, that actually triggers more threat in the nervous system, and it only lasts 2 to 3 days before you explode. And that's when the other part comes along, which is the player. So we are all very deprived of play. We're all very deprived of rest as well. So the player is the part of you that buys things to create stimulation in your life or to create a sense of rest. This thing is going to help me take a break, or, like whether it's a holiday or a pizza,
I
just
relate to that.
anything. So there's like the energy of which it's not what you're buying, it's the energy that goes into the buying. Like I can buy a pizza from my painkiller part, or I can buy a pizza from my player part. It, but the energy of which you are buying the thing is actually the clue to the unmet core need that is underneath. Because if you don't meet that unmet core need, you will remain in dysregulation and you will keep doing things to kind of soothe that core need. But if you're not actually identifying what that core need is and doing what you can to meet it, you don't necessarily have to meet it yourself, but you need to find ways to meet it. You're going to keep repeating that pattern until you're broke, until you find yourself depleting your savings, until you find yourself in debt, even though you make good money.
So, question.
Yes.
I think a lot of my listeners are similar to me. And I think I'm curious if this is the player or the people pleaser.
Tell me.
A lot of my patterns in life, I believe, come from a very severe restriction and guilt that I feel over having needs in general. Like, it's like I restrict my needs for a really long time, including asking someone else, right,
Yeah.
for them, or giving it to myself. As simple as like, I need to sleep, right? You talked about resting. I need to sleep, or I need to take a break from business. Or like I need to ask someone to give me a glass of water because I'm not feeling well. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of guilt and like a lot of like, no, it's not okay because of my childhood. And I believe that that leads to a lot of addictions.
A lot of spending.
Different addictions, including spending. I believe that it's like a restraint that is placed on me and my body for so long. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy all the delicious things that I want, like finally, like I deserve it, right? That kind
of. Well, okay. So this is a kind of a very general example. So I'm going to give you what comes to mind from the get-go. I would say you're buying from that painkiller part because you are trying to soothe the pain of not having that attunement from somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Is it also, would you say, people pleaser? Because even though I'm not buying from the energy of like, I want others to like me,
Mm.
the restriction was so that others like me. The restriction of needs for a very long time occurred because I wanted to be a connection with other people.
There are two parts at play here. There's a part of you that's restricting your needs because it wants other people to like you. But the part of you that's actually doing the spending is the painkiller.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And is the soothing is of the pain of lack of attunement, even from childhood, right?
Could be. Yeah, it could be the player as well because snacks and stuff are fun.
Yes.
You know, like a lot of times. So the prover, usually the prover is our inner team doing the buying. The painkiller and the player are mostly our inner child doing the buying. And these are not bad parts. They actually have superpowers. It's just that when our core need is actually met, these parts are free to actually do good in our system. These parts. So in 2016, I was living in Australia, and I decided to go and travel in the US for 3 months. I needed a lot of money for that because I was going to quit my job, but I also wanted to keep my apartment in Melbourne, right? It was near the beach. I was not going to let that go. So I needed money to actually cover my rent there, but also cover my Airbnb in New Orleans and blah, blah, blah. So I had this goal of saving 20 grand within 8 months because I really wanted to go to Jazz Fest, which was in April, and that all happened in September or something. Yeah, September 2015, and I wanted to go in April 2016. And I actually was so excited about that goal that my punisher was actually working in her best way possible because I felt safe. See, here's the thing. When we feel internally safe, these parts are actually doing good. So that punisher part wasn't a punisher anymore. It was like the boundary putter, the boundary like person. So I was only saying yes to things that felt aligned for me. I ended up saving $26,000 without increasing my income. I was saving so much and I sold things, and well, maybe I did increase my income because I sold things, but like I didn't work. I didn't do any more work. And
it sounded fun for you
it
almost.
was a fun experience for me because I was feeling safe. And I was just writing today, I was preparing for another podcast episode, how scarcity, when we're feeling safe, scarcity can be a precursor for creativity. But when we're not feeling safe, scarcity is actually very, very scary and disconnecting. And, it does all that stuff. But, just when we're meeting our core needs. So I had a need of adventure. Had I repressed that need, the player would have like spent so much money on bullshit. But because I met that core need of like, yeah, I need something different. I need adventure. So yeah.
Oof. Yeah. That requires so much trust. I think what you just said, self-trust. So I have been taking like 2 weeks off of my business, and it's terrifying. I haven't taken weeks off my business, including energy, like everything. I'm just like, my business doesn't exist pretty much. I worked for an hour last week, and this week a few hours, like, like that. And I feel like my core need right now is rest. Like if I don't rest, I'm going to lose my shit.
Yeah.
Like truly. I already have lost my shit pretty much, but this is like going to be next level. And it's really scary because it's like, kind of you're in conflict between what you know in your heart that you like really need to do, and that's your truth, and your body needs it. And it's a trust that, okay, if I actually meet my need, it will be okay. Like everything's going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
But society tells us to constantly push, and plus narcissism in our childhoods, constantly like push through and don't listen to those needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it could be scary to listen to those needs. Right. And that's why we do the nervous system work first, to kind of cultivate that sense of security and that self-trust of like, I can meet my core needs. But like I said earlier, it's not about relying on other people. It's not like you need to meet my need kind of thing, but it's actually be discerning of like, this is a core, like, for example, we all have a core need for genuine connection. I can meet that core need if I am constantly ignoring my inner voice. If not, I'm not listening to my inner voice. That could be one way of meeting that core need. But what if I'm somebody that's like listening to my inner voice to a point of like I'm nauseous of listening to myself, right? That is when you're actually needing, that's a discernment of like, okay, I've been listening to myself for too long. I have that already, but what I'm actually craving is friendship of like, so it's not like I'm reaching out to someone to meet my core need. I am reaching out to someone because I have a core need of deep connection.
Yeah, I think that self advocacy
Mm,
on the part of our core needs
yeah.
is really important. Like asking for help, because for a lot of time, and this might be you too, when I was doing regulation, like self-regulation, it was all about self-regulation. Like you're not allowed to ask anyone for anything,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And that's not how it works. Like part of being an adult and not being needy, but being a mature adult is being like, I actually need XYZ from someone in order to feel regulated right now. And then asking for that from a mature adult part of ourselves is huge.
But what you just said is a result of years of working on yourself. Because when we are kids, when we're children, and our unmet core needs are constantly unmet, how are we going to know that it's okay to reach for somebody else to help us? If
Oh,
it's literally
yeah.
unsafe to meet, to ask for our needs, and we learn to meet our core needs on our own, but you've done so much work to actually be able to reach out to someone, to
It's
actually
still
tell your
really
system,
hard.
yeah, me too, to actually tell your system that, oh, yeah, it's actually safe to call your partner or your best friend. It's fine. Actually, they'd be very mad if you don't.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a few minutes left, and I want to ask you, this has been so brilliant. I'm loving it. I want to ask you about what would you do in today if
Mm.
you start noticing I'm overspending?
Okay, so today, if I start noticing that I'm overspending, I would first of all fucking celebrate because I noticed. That's a great thing, to, oh my God, I am overspending. I am actually doing this thing. Then I will straight away know that there is an unmet core need. Okay, that there's a part of me. So here's a very important like kind of reframe. I am not an overspender. I'm not an emotional spender. There is a part of me right now that feels unsafe, that is trying to soothe me through shopping.
I love that. There's um inner relationship focusing is a really beautiful part work
Oh.
modality that I love. You would love it to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And Wiser Cornell. And what she says is something in me. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Something in me is overspending.
Mm-hmm. So part of me, something in me,
Yeah.
is feeling unsafe. I'm overspending.
Mhm.
I would actually go and read the list of the our core needs. I will just go and go through the list, and intuitively I would know which one. And if I were literally overspending right now, it would be because of a lack of connection, right? I don't have a lot of like, I do have good friends here in Albuquerque, but I don't see them very often, and it could be because of that. So what I would do is probably organize an outing or call a friend or something like this, just to kind of satiate that need, that craving. We call it a need, but it's actually a craving. It's more physiological than it is mental,
Mm.
right? So I just satiate that craving. I called my auntie this morning. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful conversation, right? It's not as it would be if it were in person, but it satiated that need kind of
Mm.
thing. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would just go and do that. And there are other tools. It's so simple for me to do it because I live and breathe the tools that I teach.
because you practice it. It's
Yes.
it's a muscle. It's like going to the gym and then getting into the routine.
Yes.
Strong women. Okay, so you have an incredible offering that I cannot wait for everyone. Everyone who's listening to this needs to do it. It's affordable, ridiculously affordable. Like,
Yeah, I
no
know
thoughts.
it's ridiculously
Go get it
affordable, isn't it?
immediately. Please don't think about it. Yes, this is not an overspending thing.
No, here's the thing. It is ridiculously affordable, and I have had people ask me like, "What are you? What? Why are you selling that for that much?" And it's because I want it to be in the hands of as many people as possible. Yeah. So it's a program. Well, it's a course. It's a self-paced course called Empowered Spender, and it's brilliant. It teaches you about your overspending parts, the punisher, the prover, the painkiller, the player, all that stuff. It teaches you about those. It teaches you my root healing method of how to start working and healing these parts. It teaches you about your nervous system and how it relates to emotional spending. And of course, it teaches you about meeting your core needs. And on top of that, I teach about my bucket method, which you love. And, I've taught you that. So I teach you about the bucket method, which is I'm a Virgo and I organize my finances in the best way ever. And I've taught hundreds of people this method and it's so effective. And I teach it in this program as well. And for now, this program is on sale for $64. I know, Marina's face.
I think it's awesome because people right now, a lot of people are struggling, and it's brilliant.
It's $64, and the original price is $128. But it is on sale for $64 using the coupon Empowered50. So EMPOWRED. No, whatever. Empowered50.
Spell empowered.
How are you spell empowered? Empowered50. You get it for $64. And it's just, I'm very proud of this program. Very, very proud of it.
It's like everything you've shared today is already freaking amazing, and I'm sure people are just gonna have you. I can tell you guys because I've worked with her, and I've had I never thought I'd be able to walk into a grocery store peacefully, and I am. So
yeah, I'm very proud of you. I know it sounds so silly,
it's not silly.
No, to someone who hasn't experienced this, right? But I feel like everybody would understand. I used to go into the grocery store and get extremely dysregulated to a point where I would just freeze. And then my husband and I would fight. Like, what are you doing? Can you? Listen, I can't function. I'm not okay. But so I know what I knew you were going through exactly. And it just feels it's that sense of empowerment and that belief that you can be trusted with money. That is priceless. That is priceless. And if you take anything from this episode, anything from my program, anything from anything, it's that you need to create, we sit down and try to hammer in new beliefs about money, affirmations, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, if you do not have an embodied experiential new experience with money, your beliefs about money will never change. You need to have a new experience. That's how healing happens, by creating new experiences so that your nervous system, your body, your subconscious will start believing something new. So if we don't actually do that intentionally, we're always going to revert back to our old beliefs about money. So when we do the work and you go to the supermarket and you don't get dysregulated and you start believing that you can be trusted with money, that you're capable, that you're responsible, that you're, an adult, you're great. That is when you start instilling new beliefs about money. It's not through repeating affirmations and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they're cool, but they're fun. They're empowering in the moment, but they're like a hype girl. You know, that hype girl energy. You're like, it's good for 2 hours and then what?
Agreed.
Yeah.
You need to go to the root. This was amazing. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you
for having me. Yeah.